Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're zooming in from. My name is Jem. I am a first year MBA at Yale School of Management. So first, I wanted to thank you for joining me today on this virtual campus tour of Yale School of Management. And I'm sure you've seen upon joining that there is a poll. Um, so if you could fill that out, it's just to kind of see where everyone is dialing in from and where you are exactly on your kind of MBA journey. And just going back to a little bit more about myself, prior to SOM, I was a human capital consultant in New York. And I decided I wanted to get my MBA to just broaden the scope of the work that I was doing. And this summer, I'll actually be going to Amazon on their retail team, most likely doing some sort of marketing and supply chain work. And some things that I'm involved with here at SOM are the consulting club. I am a first year and will be a second year leader for the marketing club. And I'm also part of the social impact club. And actually next fall, I'll be going abroad to ESA Barcelona. And so I'm hoping that, the borders open up and everything is safe. All right. So let's see. Just to see where most of us are joining from, it looks like a little more than half are coming in from North America. So looks like, US, Canada, Mexico, and then this 26% of us are coming in from Asia. So welcome. I feel like it's at midnight in most parts of Asia. So thank you for, um, joining us so late. And as far as where people are in the application process, it looks like the majority will be applying during the next application cycle. So a little more than half. So, right, sounds great. Um, so I'd just like to begin by, starting that in a normal situation, most of you would be at Evans Hall at SOM's campus. But as you know, we are in a global pandemic. And so that is why, we're here doing this virtually. And I think one of the benefits actually though, is that because it's virtual, we've been able to set this up and have a lot more engagement and attendance from students that may not have been able to visit in person. So the silver lining is that this has become a bit more accessible. And obviously, the pictures don't do New Haven, Yale, and SOM justice, but I'll be walking you and talking through a series of images to just kind of give you a sense of what the spaces look like and where you'll be potentially studying for the next 2 years. And I'll also be inputting some of my, personal experiences. I'm actually from New Haven, so I went to high school here, so I know the city quite well. So it's definitely interesting perspective to see the city through the lens of being a Yale graduate student, because initially I was just like a 16-year-old high school student. But all right, and at the end of the virtual tour, um, I'll be more than happy to answer some questions that come up, time permitting. And I think one of the things that I like to just emphasize is that all of the photos that you see today were taken prior to the pandemic. So that's why you'll see some people in the photos without masks on and in more tight spaces. But if you'd like to, get a glimpse of what SOM and Evans Hall is like right now, I encourage you to follow us on social media. So on Instagram, it's at Yale SOM, and Facebook. I don't have Facebook, but I just imagine it's Yale School of Management. And then also definitely encourage you to follow us on LinkedIn, because there's a lot of interesting posts about events that happen at SOM, such as conferences and guest lectures. All right, let me move on to the next slide. and bear with me with the technology. All right, so yeah, this image, when you first get to New Haven, Connecticut, SOM is actually really prominent in the sense that it stands out among all of the other Yale architecture. So typically Yale College and some of the other graduate programs, they're housed in the sort of more Gothic architecture with like stones. But as you see in the image, SOM is made out of glass, and it has a large courtyard inside that lets in a lot of sunlight. And it was actually intentionally designed this way with glass because it represents the school's belief that businesses and management should be transparent. So this is actually just like a real life example of how SOM's mission to educate leaders in business and society really motivates decisions around the programs and activities and even the physical presentation of SOM's building. So, just a bit of some facts. This new campus, Evans Hall, it opened up in 2014 and was actually designed by Lord Norman Foster, an actual alum from Yale School of Architecture. And the building, as well as the classrooms, they are state of the art in the sense that they have the latest sort of technology. They're designed for a lot of collaboration. And there's actually eating spaces as well as meeting rooms and relaxation areas for students and faculty alike. One thing that I would like to also add is that Evans Hall and all of really Yale community does a really great job of incorporating sustainability and environmental sort of protection in its practices and policies. So if and when you come to Evans Hall, you'll see a lot of bins that are designed for separating compost with paper and plastics and then regular trash. And it's just another testament that Yale, as well as SOM, really sort of wants to impact the world and the earth in a positive manner and not kind of create so much waste. So Evans Hall is where you'll be taking most of your classes, unless you choose to take a class outside of SOM. And we'll talk about that later in a bit more depth. But otherwise, like all of your sort of SOM club meetings, recruiting events, and even study as well as team meetings with your classmates, they'll most likely be taking place in Evans Hall. And also the faculty and staff and administration have offices here. And really all of this happens under one roof so that one, it maximizes your time and efficiency, as well as enhances and increases the opportunity for random coffee chats and bumping into new students and professors that you may not readily see. So for me, I really enjoyed going into Evans Hall because as a first year, you're segmented into 5 different cohorts. Not sure if I'll get to that, but if I do, I'm sorry if I repeat this. But because I'm in the silver cohort, which is the best cohort, a lot of my first year has been around interacting with other silver cohort classmates. However, because of the fact that in the hybrid mode, we've been able to go into Evans Hall, I've met a lot of classmates in different cohorts that I wouldn't have taken the core curriculum with. And of course, now that I'm taking electives, I have been able to meet a lot of second years and other first years who are outside my cohort as well. But in this image, I wanted to draw your attention to that like blue sign in the bottom left corner. And it is probably the most photographed spot in Evans Hall. And as you can see, it's Yale School of Management's signboard. And I can assure you that there were a lot of students Instagramming this sign earlier this year, this academic year. And it also is a popular spot for students who are graduating and going through commencement. All right, let's see. All right, now we are going to get a look inside the building. Right now, this is just like a hallway and the first floor of Evans Hall. And the first floor includes a cafe, a dining hall, the student lounge area, and then also Zhang Auditorium, which is a big auditorium space for larger meetings and lectures, and then also the career development office. All right, so this is Evans Cafe. It is a completely cashless cafe, which has been great in the time of COVID because it just reduces the number of, interactions that, might, that just isn't really conducive to a pandemic. But the cafe is a great place to grab coffee and snacks in between classes. I've definitely grabbed some food here, especially when I've been running around classes and meetings as well. But one of the great things about this space is that it is initially set up so that, first years can have coffee chats with other first years or with second years as well. Because I'll just say from my experience, like second year students are an immense resource to first years, and they provide a lot of mentorship as we embark on our recruiting process, or even just getting advice on like how to navigate classes. Okay, so a little down the hall and across from Evans Cafe is Charlie's Place, which is a cafeteria really open to all of the Yale community, but mostly you'd probably be seeing your fellow classmates eating there or professors and staff members. So there's plenty of space to sit down and just catch up with friends or work on a class assignment over lunch, which is definitely something that I have done. And you can also grab your food to go, if you're headed to a meeting. A lot of club meetings and events happen during the lunch hour because we don't have classes from 11:30 to 1 p.m. That's true of all of SOM classes. That block is held. And the thing is, like, you think that this is like a free time to do whatever you want, but as I mentioned, there's a lot happening. So there's like club meetings, company presentations, and speaker series. And then also, if you're not keen to eat in a cafeteria, just down the street from Evans Hall, there's actual food trucks that come, and there's like Indian food, Thai food, Mexican food, where you can just go and grab lunch really quickly over there as well. All right. So after Charlie's Pace, what we see is the Courtyard. Um, so when the weather is nice, and because we're in New England, we have to relish in the short sort of like 4 months of autumn and spring combined. You can take a lot of meetings outside Evans Hall. I remember when I first entered Evans Hall for my first class, like all of us went down to the Courtyard and just um, socially distanced. We got to meet each other, meet more of our classmates, and it was a lot of fun. And so when it's not being used for like sort of specific events, the Courtyard is just like a nice place to get some fresh air and just relax when you get the chance. All right. Okay, there you go. So there are definitely some formal events that happen in the Courtyard as well. So some of these are the club fair following orientation week. There's also large networking events with the CDO where employers might come and set up tables, and you can hop around each table, grab some swag. And then there's also several social events, including closing bells, which happen every Thursday pre-pandemic, and hopefully post-pandemic as well when you join. It happens every Thursday, and it's like basically like an open bar of wine and beer where you just like drink with your fellow classmates, and it's completely free because SOM sponsors it. And then also commencement occurs. So as you can see in like the bottom right circle. All right, next slide. All right. So heading back inside from the courtyard, I know I mentioned that relaxation is not very common, but if you do need like a break in between classes or something, we have the student lounge also on the first floor. And the lounge has a microwave and refrigerator for students to use, as well as plenty of seating, as you can see. So when I came to visit SOM, I got to see the student lounge and utilize it. There were a ton of students here doing homework, just kind of taking naps even. As you can see, this student like lying on the floor on the bottom right or on the sofa. It's definitely a bit of a quiet area because it seems to be like people using it to get work done or just take meetings with headsets on. But sometimes some student groups will run like meditation sessions early in the morning if you want to partake in that. Right now, because of the pandemic, the student lounge is closed, but we are expecting it to open next year, with the appropriate guidelines. All right. So I think I mentioned this earlier, but this image here is the Zhang Auditorium. It is the largest venue space in Evans Hall and has the capacity to seat 350 students. And that is actually the average size of the incoming class, of every class at SOM. So the auditorium is used for welcome weekend events, which I got to experience. It's also used for larger orientation meetings, major conferences hosted by student organizations and clubs, and also the Leaders Forum. So, just coming to SOM as well as Yale, you get access to an immense number of resources, and that includes people and leaders that are really sort of impacting the world, whether through businesses or nonprofits, or through the public sector. So I don't know if you can see in the image, but you'll see that the left panelist is John Kerry. And so he came to Yale University and gave a talk, and SOM hosted him at Zhang Auditorium. And also, I believe a couple of years back, like Hillary Clinton came as well. And a couple of weekends ago, Kamala Harris came to New Haven, although she didn't make a pit stop at Evans Hall. Maybe in the future, when you're here, she'll make another visit again. All right. I want to make sure it switches to the next slide. All right, there we go. All right, so going up, before we go to the second floor, because it was all on the first floor, I do want to just mention our career development office. They are pivotal for your recruiting. I've used them so many times throughout my first year here, whether it's through mock interviews or guidance on networking, responding to even emails, and then also just for like therapy sessions, in all honesty. Excuse me. So the CDO really helps facilitate like job opportunities across functions, industries, and geographies. And one of the really great things about SOM is that there's such a diverse background that students are coming from, and then also such a diverse interest of like post MBA careers. So the CDO is like very well versed in like talking about these different areas that you might want to go into. So in a typical year, the career development office runs over 1,500 individual coaching appointments. I probably took up 500 of those, and then also over 100 company visits. And I think in my experience, this has been similar virtually as well. There were so many company visits that I wanted to attend virtually, but I had to prioritize and really think about what I wanted to do as my post MBA career and internship. And so stuff like that, you need to make decisions on because there's just so many options offered at SOM. And then last thing that I'm going to mention is that prior to even coming on campus, the CDO runs like these light seminars throughout the summer. So you'll be getting coaching in the summer before you even have orientation, before you even have your first day of classes, because they just want to make sure they set you up with enough time, because when you first come to campus, it is a mad rush. All right, now we are going to head upstairs to the second, third, fourth floors. And these floors are where you'll be having most of your classes. So I had all of my classes up on the fourth floor. So it was like going through a fourth floor walk up. Fortunately, coming from New York, I was used to that. Um, but there's also some administrative offices on these upper floors as well, like AASL, which is the Academic Affairs and Student Life uh, department. And there's also tons of like breakout spaces for studying and group meetings as well. So we're going to take a closer look at the classrooms and how they are designed. Right. The classrooms here are actually designed with SOM's integrated curriculum in mind. So like core classrooms, like the one you see in the bottom left, those are meant to hold all 70, members of your cohort. And I think I mentioned there are 5 cohorts. So I'm in silver. There's also gold, and then blue, green, and red. And they say that all these cohorts have distinct personalities. I personally have found that to be somewhat true, but I don't know if it's like a nature of the fact that we're all just kind of put into this cohort together and then like going through these classes, and then we just kind of develop like similar personalities in the end as well. But anyways, these larger classrooms are obviously great for like lecture and case style classes where it's a combination from the instructor. And then you'll see that elective classrooms are a bit smaller. So like the one on the bottom right, I think that like literally seats like maybe 20 to 25 people. And they have 3 different sort of seating arrangements. So it's like the teams and group, and then there's the boardroom, and then theater. So, like I mentioned, all these classrooms have really great technology. They can beam in speakers and remote students, which has been really essential during the pandemic. And also, like, I'm not gonna lie, when I have like an 8 a.m. class and I just cannot make it up to go to Evans Hall, I'm able to just roll out of bed and take it from my desk and feel like I'm in the classroom because of the way that the technology is set up. All right. So when you look at this image, you'll notice that all the students have name tags. I have my name tag as well, like right over here. So name tags allow obviously professors and yourself to engage and call out students for participation easily. They're actually both sided. So if you're sitting behind someone, you can also read that person's name in case you haven't met that person and like become more familiar with it. And I know that's helped a lot in terms of, for me, getting to know my classmates and remembering who they are. So the name tags are white on one side and I think it's black on the other. And it varies from class to class how professors utilize the name cards. Some of them just might use them as name cues, but other times they might actually be more interactive where they may ask a question. And once you have like a response, they'll ask you to like flip it so that it serves as a signal to letting the professor know that you're ready to engage in the dialogue. So the next image here is a picture of the Ross Library. I'm not gonna lie, I have never been in here. So it's a really great space though, because it's nice and large and it takes up essentially like half of the second floor. And it looks out at Peabody Museum across the hall, as well as the Whale Ingalls hockey rink, which hockey club participates in and uses a lot. So the library is staffed by an SOM librarian who serves as a resource for you to either get cases, learn about companies, or do any sort of research that you may be doing for a project or an independent study. One of the things that you may notice, though, is that this library has no books. So everything is actually either housed online or it can be rented through another library that actually houses the book on Yale's campus. So one of the libraries that I have been to on Yale's campus is Sterling Library, and I've definitely studied there and met up with friends over there. And that one has a lot of books, and I definitely recommend checking out all of sort of Yale's campus as well, if and when you get here. Oops, I think I went a little too fast. Okay. All right. So moving away from Ross Library, you'll see a breakout room with a team of students working on some sort of assignment or presentation. It might be a case competition or something like that. So each cohort of students are separated into learning teams of 9 or 10, and then you work on all of the core class projects with them. So that's how I've become really close to my learning teammates. We've basically done every core assignment together. It changes a bit once you get into second semester with your electives with body swaps, but that's such a technical thing that I won't get into. But because through this learning team, like not only do you learn how to work together, but it's also where you make some of your best friends. Like I would say like 2 of my closest friends at SOM are from my learning team, and we really do like almost everything together in terms of spending the weekends together and all that. And also a lot of my other close friends are from my cohort as well. So the learning team, oops, sorry about that. The learning team is pre-selected by AASL, which is the Academic Affairs and Student Life Department. And they intentionally create your learning team so that you bring in a breadth of experiences and perspectives, and also learn to work with people that may have differing opinions as you. And I know that's definitely been an eye-opening experience and not something that always presents itself in like the real world, because oftentimes we sort of enter into our own echo chamber. But one of the things that have really been great about, my learning team experience is that when I was recruiting in the fall semester, a couple of my learning teammates took on the brunt of the work so that I could focus on recruiting. And then now that it's the spring semester, I'm returning the favor and I'm doing a lot more work while a couple of my learning teammates are still recruiting. So, all right. So what you see here in these next couple of images are really things that you do outside of the classroom at SOM. So there are so many things going on at SOM, whether it's from a professional perspective or a social perspective, or even an academic perspective. Like I know I've had to really balance participating in case competitions with wanting to, grab happy hour with friends, and also maybe doing, the macro reading that we're supposed to do, which I still haven't done for today. So it's really hard to say no to things, but it's a really vibrant social life here. And there are so many like events and activities to get involved with that one of the things that I've actually sacrificed is like sleep. So just a couple like community traditions here at SOM. So starting with our top left is our internship fund auction. It is a yearly tradition in support of Internship Fund, which provides stipends to students pursuing internships in the public or nonprofit organizations. So the auction is Internship Fund's biggest fundraising event of the year, and it's actually happening this Friday for us. So we're really excited about it. And it features like a gamut of items or services that are donated by SOM students, faculty, and school leaders. Just a funny note, one of the things that I saw that is being auctioned off is a friend of mine will break up with your significant other on your behalf, so you don't have to do it. So it's just like a bunch of random things, but like because we of course love our community, love our classmates, and like want to support them, some of these items bid for like a ridiculous amount of money. On the bottom right is annual SOM's Friendsgiving dinner, and that's organized by Academic Affairs and Student Life on the second floor of Evans Hall. So this is just a really great opportunity to meet more of your classmates, take fellowship, and just share dinner. And just want to highlight the top right corner. Oh, I see my friend Soy in that picture. So the top right is Hockey Club, and they are probably one of the most active and largest student clubs at SOM. And it culminates in a big SOM HBS hockey match right before the Yale and Harvard football game. So obviously we weren't able to do this next year, but I'm friends with the hockey club leaders next year we weren't able to do this year, but we'll definitely planning to do it for next year. And my friends who are the club leaders for hockey are already planning all of it in, optimism. All right. The other thing that I want to mention in this image is like now we're not just seeing Evans Hall and SOM, but we're seeing a lot of Yale campus. So one thing that's really unique at SOM is that the whole university takes a one Yale approach. So as a student at SOM, you have access to all the resources of Yale University, not just SOM, and it's really integrated across the Yale undergrad college as well as other graduate programs. So for example, one of the electives that I'm taking, a couple students are from the School of Public Health as well as the law school, but it's an SOM class. And then also for me next year, I definitely am keen to take a course from Yale Law School as well. And we're allowed to actually take our entire second year of our MBA as electives, and those electives can be in any Yale classroom. So essentially, I can take all my electives outside of SOM and take it at the Yale School of the Environment, Law School, School of Public Health, as well as public policy. So that's a really great and unique thing about SOM that stood out to me when I was choosing it, because there was just so many other things that I want to learn. All right. And just like another cool statistic is that in any given year, around 50% of SOM MBAs are pursuing joint degrees. So again, it goes back to just like the fact that SOM really values different perspectives and different backgrounds, and not just people coming from this solid like corporate business background. Okay. And in this image, what you see is Yale Sci-City. So this is the Center for Innovative Thinking. Think of this as like the entrepreneurial center for Yale. And so not just SOM students utilize it, but students across like the university, entire university as well. So I know like two of my friends are part of Sci-City, and they've been working on their startup here, and it's been a great resource for them as far as like feedback, not just from the administrators and professors that are part of Sci-City, but also from their fellow students who are part of this sort of Sci-City program. And again, this is outside of SOM, so you can actually engage with Sci-City without, having to like take a class or anything like that. With just a mention of like entrepreneurship, SOM also has its own entrepreneurship center that's located within Evans Hall that provides resources and feedback and experiences directly for SOM students. And so it's called the Honesty Entrepreneurship Suite. And I haven't utilized this, but it's definitely something that we're all aware of. And it's definitely something that you can definitely leverage if you want to, dip your toes into finding your own company. All right, so we're going to take a step back and look at Yale in the context of New Haven. So New Haven is a small, New England city, and it's a couple of hours from both New York City and Boston. And I've definitely taken advantage of this because I've made trips up to Boston as well as New York City to see friends and family because we're dispersed around the area. Um, but pre-pandemic, it was also great because clubs as well as the career development office would organize company treks to New York City and Boston, as well as other cities on the West Coast and across the US. But because of the fact that it's in between these two cities specifically, they are the most common treks. And you can learn like through these treks about like firms related to financial services, tech, or healthcare. So it's really great to be in this sort of central location. Um, and I will say that New Haven has been a big part of my SOM experience because I went to high school here. So I know the city fairly well. So I've been able to show my fellow students the different areas of New Haven that are worth visiting and the ones that are worth maybe avoiding. Um, you know, and so it has a lot of great shops and great restaurants. I'm sure I cannot leave this, webinar without mentioning New Haven a pizza. So my favorite pizza place is Sally's, but Modern definitely gets an honorable mention. And it's because it's a bit of a smaller city, New Haven is kind of divided into a downtown area as well as a more residential East Rock neighborhood. And most students live either in East Rock or in downtown. And then, of course, you have a couple that live around the surrounding area of New Haven. But I personally live in downtown. So I live in one of the sort of high rise apartment buildings, but it's super walkable, like a 10 to 15-minute walk into East Rock. And I live like 9 minutes away from Evans Hall. So it's super great. All right. And I realize that we're running a bit short on time, but the images that you see here weren't taken on campus, but it's reflective of SOM experience, such as going on an international experience, going on like a trek, and going to different conferences. So SOM has like a global studies requirement. So what that really means is that you have to take at least one course that has some sort of international global element to it, whether that's actually going on an international exchange, like the one that I'll be doing for a whole quarter or semester, or you can do like a 1 week international experience trip where you take a couple classes on campus and then it culminates in a week-long trip to the host country and city. So past international experience trips have included Brazil, China, as well as Israel and Japan. All right. So we're going to wrap up the tour with this image. As you can see, it's very bustling, and it is the second floor of Evans Hall on an afternoon between classes. And again, this picture was taken before the pandemic. So I actually recognize a couple of my second year friends. But I hope that this was helpful and that you can really sort of picture yourself. Of course, it's not the same as, stepping your physical foot on campus, but just want to thank you for joining the virtual tour, and I am happy to answer any questions that have come up at this time. All right, so it looks like the first question that I have is, how busy is your day-to-day schedule with respect to academics, clubs, and extracurriculars? Um, so my day-to-day schedule when I was recruiting was packed with club meetings and what is it, like recruiting meetings with like coffee chats and employer events, as well as academic team meetings. So like to just like get an assignment done. And it's definitely a game where you have to like prioritize what your values are in a way. And they always say you can prioritize three things. It's like fun, academics, or sleep. And so I definitely sacrificed a bit more of the sleeping so that I can maximize the academic and professional experience as well as the socializing. And one thing that I do recommend is like get comfortable with blocking everything on your calendar. One thing that you'll see is that some events may just pop up on your Outlook calendar if you don't block it off. And so one of the things that I've been doing this year or this semester is actually just blocking off times where I'm like, I need to get work done. So this is like study time for the next 2 hours. And so that's been really helpful because a lot of your teammates may just like book a time on your calendar, or if like a classmate needs to have a coffee chat with you for some reason, they may just like send out an invitation based on your availability. So it is quite busy, but obviously, I do make time for my own sanity, and that's where like the whole socializing part comes in. Is that I would just be drained if I were just doing classes and recruiting stuff the whole time. All right. So, what has been your experience with the integrated curriculum so far? Do you have a favorite class from the core curriculum? So, the integrated curriculum is actually great because it takes a lot of the core classes and it doesn't just like contain like your education and lectures from that one course. You're expected to kind of incorporate what you've learned in other courses of the core throughout the other like remaining ones as well. So it's like really well intentioned and designed so that we're talking about accounting principles in a marketing class and how that affects decisions. And so I really enjoyed that. My favorite class from the core curriculum is operations engine. And that's one because it's a like a topic that I had never been exposed to, but something that I realized I was doing in my day-to-day life pre-SOM at my old job. And then also the professor Leslie Meng, she is just amazing. She's just super engaging and like really cheeky and like will like call you out if she doesn't agree with something, which I think is really important because sometimes we're coddled and that's not the best learning environment. So I really appreciate her style of teaching and also just the topic. So if you're lucky enough, you'll get Leslie Meng when you join. How are learning teams selected? And are you all from similar career backgrounds? So I think I touched upon this, is that the learning teams are all from various backgrounds. So two people from my learning team came from a nonprofit arts background. One came from a design consulting background. Two were accountants, and three were consultants, myself included. So it runs the gamut. And they're also the second largest employer pre-SOM is like the US military. So there's a high chance that you might have like a veteran in your learning team as well. I didn't, but I know a lot of friends who have. And so it's really just a diverse background. Are you taking any electives now at other Yale grad schools, or do you have plans to do so in your second year? Yep. So I'll definitely be taking a course in the Yale School of the Environment next year. It's called like Sustainability and Impact Measurement. It's actually a co-listed course with YSE as well as SOM. And so it's just kind of like a course where you learn about like how corporate social responsibility practices measure impact in a corporation and then also measure impact on a more macro level. So that's definitely something I'm keen to learn more about. I definitely want to take a class Hi, I am sorry. I think I lost connection. So I don't know when I lost it, but the question that I was answering was how has the pandemic changed my experience um, on campus with clubs and recruiting? I was just briefly mentioned that a lot of the professional clubs, as well as the identity and affinity clubs, there's a social element. And so a lot of that had to be pivoted to doing a bit more of like intimate gatherings or switching those to like virtual events. And so that's where most of the marketing clubs have, or not the marketing, but the professional clubs have kind of leveraged the technology more throughout the pandemic. And then, of course, recruiting was fully virtual. And it actually, for me, I really appreciated it because it allowed me to kind of sit in one place, attend employer events, and not be running around classroom to classroom to figure out where employer events were happening. And so I was able to stay more focused and really maximize the efficiency that I was going through. All right, so I know that we're at time, but the last question that we have is, do you have any advice for round three applicants? So I think for round three applicants or even applicants who will be applying in the next cycle, I definitely encourage you to utilize the admissions committee, whoever the admissions director that gets connected to you, and use them as a resource because they will answer all your questions. They will connect you to the right people if you have questions that they themselves cannot answer. And they will be kind of like your champion. So definitely try to foster that relationship in a meaningful way. I'm not saying like send them a message every single day. Definitely don't do that. They would kill me. And then also just try to connect with the students as much as possible that allows you to feel comfortable in a sense that like these are people that I can be friends with. These are people that I can hang out with because I'll be honest, when I was making the decision to come to SOM, it came down to the people. I was choosing among three different programs, and I felt like SOM, when I came here for welcome weekend, my fellow admitted students, I felt like I could see a future with them in terms of friendships, long-term relationships, whether it was professional or personal. And so don't neglect your sort of gut with that. So those are all the questions that we have time for. If you have any other remaining questions, I definitely encourage you to reach out to admissions team. You can find them at the som.yale.edu website. And then also through that website, we have student ambassadors that you could individually reach out to as well. Um, I should be an ambassador next year. So yeah. Um, Again, thank you for your time, and I hope to hear and see from you in the near future.